Imagine waking up one morning, brewing your coffee, stepping out onto your porch, and realizing you don't own it anymore because your own son sold it while you were still living inside. That's not a nightmare. That's my reality. My name is Richard Wallace, 62 years old, retired firefighter, proud homeowner. Or at least, I thought I was. The house was more than wood and bricks. It was the place where I carried my wife across the threshold, when my daughter took her first steps, when my family ate Thanksgiving dinner every year without fail. It was my legacy, my anchor. And then my son sold it, behind my back. It started like any other Tuesday. I was fixing the squeaky hinge on the screen door when a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Out stepped a well-dressed couple, mid-40s, designer sunglasses, the kind of people who smell like money. "Excuse me," the man said, holding a folder. "Is this 1497 Eastwood Drive?" "Yes," I answered cautiously. "Can I help you?" He smiled too wide. "We're the new owners. We just closed on the property yesterday. We wanted to see our house." I laughed at first, a short, confused chuckle. "You must have the wrong address. I've lived here for 30 years. This house isn't for sale." The woman tilted her head, pity in her eyes, and handed me the folder. Inside were legal documents, title transfer, mortgage settlement, a cashier's check receipt, all with my address printed neatly across the top. And the signature at the bottom? My son's. Not mine. My son's. That was the moment the ground disappeared beneath me, because according to those papers, I didn't own my own house anymore. I slammed the door in their faces and locked it, my hands shaking. My first thought wasn't about money, it wasn't about paperwork. It was about betrayal. My son, Daniel, my only son, 35 years old, ambitious, always chasing quick cash schemes. I'd bailed him out of trouble more times than I could count. Speeding tickets, gambling debts, even a failed crypto investment. But this was unthinkable. I grabbed my phone and dialed him. He picked up on the third ring. "Dad, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait?" His voice was calm, casual, as if he hadn't just sold the ground beneath my feet. "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "why are strangers standing on my lawn with papers saying they own my house?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Look, Dad, don't overreact. It's complicated. I'll explain tonight." "Complicated?" Our voice cracked. "You sold my house, the one I raised you in." "It's not like that," he snapped. "I did it for both of us. You'll understand. Just wait until tonight, okay?" And he hung up. I stared at the phone, numb. Did it for both of us? What kind of twisted logic was that? That evening, he showed up with that salesman smile plastered on his face, holding 2 takeout bags like it was just another family dinner. "Dad," he began smoothly, "I found a way to free up equity. We're talking hundreds of thousands. We can move you into something smaller, more modern. No more repairs, no more headaches. It's a win-win." I wanted to strangle him. "Win-win? You sold my life, without asking, without even telling me." He shrugged, setting the food on the counter. "Legally, I had authority. Remember last year when you were in the hospital and you signed that power of attorney form? You trusted me to handle things if I wasn't able. Well, I used it for us." My stomach dropped. He was right. After my heart scare, I'd given him temporary power of attorney just in case. I never thought he'd abuse it, but he had.
And worse, I realized in that moment, Daniel had no intention of giving me a penny from the sale. The next few days were chaos. Realtors called, inspectors arrived, contractors walked through the rooms, measuring walls like my memories were just obstacles in their renovation plans. I fought it. God knows I fought. I dug through every drawer, searching for loopholes. I called my lawyer, Arthur. He reviewed the documents, and his verdict was crushing. "Richard," he said carefully, "the power of attorney gave Daniel the authority to act on your behalf. Unless you can prove fraud or coercion, the sale is valid." Fraud. That word burned in my brain. Because that signature on the deed transfer? It didn't look like mine. It looked forged. I stormed into Daniel's condo that night. "I forged my signature." He smirked, sipping whiskey. "Don't be dramatic, Dad. The notary cleared it. I know my own handwriting." "Yeah? And who's going to believe you? An old man with shaky hands over me, the golden boy who's been helping his poor aging father manage his assets?" I froze. That was his game. He wanted me to look senile, incompetent, like I couldn't handle my own affairs. And if that narrative stuck, I wouldn't just lose my house, I'd lose everything. That's when I found the hidden file on Daniel's laptop, a folder labeled Estate Plan. Inside, documents naming him as sole heir to all my assets and a draft obituary with my name already filled in. He wasn't just selling my house. He was planning for my death.
When I first became a father, I promised myself I would never let my children go without. My son Daniel was supposed to carry my legacy, not bury it. But as I stared at the folder on his laptop marked Estate Plan, my blood froze. There it was, typed documents, making him sole heir to everything I owned. My savings, my pension, even the car my late wife loved driving. And then, that draft obituary. Cold, clinical, like my death was just an appointment on his calendar. The son I thought I knew, the boy who used to fall asleep on my chest during baseball games, the young man I supported through college, had turned into a stranger, a predator. And his target was me. I closed the laptop quietly, my hands trembling. He was in the shower down the hall. For a moment I considered confronting him right then. But then I thought, no. If I tipped him off too early, he'd cover his tracks. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof. So I played along. I acted confused, hesitant, even grateful when he talked about taking care of me. I let him believe I was slipping. Meanwhile, I started digging. I called Arthur again, my lawyer. "Arthur," I whispered over the phone, "I need you to help me investigate my son." Silence on the other end. Then, cautiously, "Are you sure about this, Richard?" "Dead sure," I said, "because if I'm not careful, I might end up literally dead." Over the next week, I started noticing details I had ignored before. Strange envelopes arriving for Daniel, marked with bank logos I didn't recognize. Phone calls he'd take outside, lowering his voice. And the way he kept pushing me to downsize. Downsize? That was his polite word for exile. One night, I followed him. He left the house at 11 p.m. sharp, claiming he was meeting a client. But I knew better. I tailed him across town until he pulled into a dark parking lot behind a casino. There, under a flickering streetlight, I saw him hand a manila envelope to a broad-shouldered stranger. Cash. My son wasn't just selling my house. He was in bed with loan sharks. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. So that was it. He hadn't sold the house for me. He'd sold it to pay his debts. And if I didn't stop him, I wouldn't just be homeless. I'd be collateral. The next morning, Daniel walked into my kitchen whistling like nothing had happened. He dropped a brochure on the table. A retirement home. cozy, pastel-colored rooms with smiling seniors on the cover. "Dad, look, this place would be perfect for you. They've got 24/7 medical staff, game nights, even a shuttle bus to church. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing." I stared at him. "You mean after you dump me there with the rest of the forgotten parents?" His smile faltered. "Don't be dramatic. You'll be taken care of." Taken care of. The words made my stomach turn. That night, I dug deeper. I went through his desk drawers, his car, even his trash. Finally, in the glove compartment of his BMW, I found it. A crumpled letter from a collections agency. The numbers hit me like a punch. He owed nearly $250,000. And the collateral listed wasn't just the house, it was me. The note included chilling language. "Failure to pay will result in collection of all available assets, including guardianship rights over Richard Wallace." Guardianship rights. My son wasn't just trying to steal my money, he was trying to declare me incompetent so he could sell everything in my name, legally. I couldn't breathe. My own flesh and blood was preparing paperwork to strip me of my independence, to sign me into a home where he could drain my accounts dry while I rotted away in a rocking chair. I paced the living room, the walls suddenly closing in on me. My late wife's portrait stared down from above the fireplace. "Linda, what happened to our boy?" But I already knew. Greed happened, desperation happened, and now betrayal was complete. Still, one thought kept me standing. If Daniel thought I was going to roll over and let him bury me alive, he didn't know his father at all. I started gathering allies. First, Arthur, my lawyer, who agreed to discreetly review Daniel's financial records. Then, Margaret, my neighbor, who promised to testify if needed. She'd seen the shady men coming to Daniel's door at night. And finally, I reached out to my daughter Emily, who lived 3 states away. She had always been the responsible one, the one Daniel mocked as boring. When I told her everything, there was a long silence on the line. Then she said, "Dad, pack a bag. I'm coming to get you." But I shook my head. "Not yet. I'm not leaving my house, not until Daniel learns what it means to lose everything." The next morning, I woke up to a noise outside. Movers. 3 trucks lined the street, men hauling boxes up my driveway. Daniel stood in the middle of it all, clipboard in hand, shouting orders. "Dad," he called, spotting me on the porch. "Good news. I found buyers who'll pay cash. We're moving you out today." That was the moment I realized if I didn't act fast, I wasn't just going to lose my house. I was going to lose my freedom.
The sound of movers tearing through my life was like a war drum in my chest. Each box carried away was a memory. Linda's china set, the rocking chair where Emily once napped, the books I had read to Daniel as a child. Gone, boxed up, erased. I stood at the top of the porch steps, glaring at my son. "Daniel," I said, my voice low, "what are you doing?" He barely looked up from his clipboard. "Closing a deal, Dad. The buyers are already waiting on the papers. It's better this way. Quick, clean, no drama." No drama? My entire life was being ripped from under me, and he wanted no drama? I clenched my fists, but I knew brute anger wouldn't win this battle. He had paperwork, movers, and the element of surprise. All I had was resolve, and a few secrets of my own. I grabbed my phone and dialed Arthur. "They're here," I whispered. "He's selling the house today." Arthur's reply was sharp. "Then stall him.
Whatever you do, Richard, do not sign anything. I'll be there in 30 minutes with the injunction." My pulse raced. 30 minutes. That was the finish line. If I could keep Daniel distracted, if I could stop him from locking this deal, I had a chance. I walked down the porch steps, slowly, forcing calm into my voice. "Daniel," I said, "at least tell me this. What did you get for the house?" He smirked. "More than you ever could. Cash. Enough to clear my debts and start over." There it was. He had admitted it. My son wasn't selling the house for my benefit. He was selling it to save himself. But before I could reply, one of the movers stumbled, dropping a box that split open on the driveway. Out rolled photo albums, Linda's wedding dress, and the small wooden box that held her wedding ring. "Careful with that," I barked, running forward. I knelt, clutching the ring, my hands trembling. Linda's voice seemed to echo in my ears. "Protect what we built, Richard. Don't let it slip away." When I looked up, Daniel's face was cold, detached. He didn't even flinch at the sight of his mother's things in the dirt. That's when I realized I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for her memory. I stood tall, dusting off the ring. "You regret this, Daniel," I said quietly. He sneered. "No, Dad, I'll finally be free." Inside, the buyers were waiting. A man and woman in suits, papers spread across my dining table like vultures ready to feast. Daniel introduced me as though I were some burden he had already disposed of. "Here's my father," he said casually. "He just needs to sign, and it's all official." All eyes turned to me. I forced a smile, lowering myself into the chair. My pen hovered over the document. Then I looked up, straight into the buyer's eyes. "Did my son tell you that he doesn't own this house?" I asked calmly. The room froze. Daniel's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" he hissed. I tapped the papers. "This property deed still lists me as the sole owner, and until a judge says otherwise, nobody, not even my son, can sell what isn't his." The buyers exchanged wary looks. One of them muttered, "We need clarification before proceeding." Daniel's jaw tightened. He pulled me aside, gripping my arm hard. "Dad, what the hell are you doing? You're going senile. Just sign it." Senile. I've never been clearer in my life.
At that moment, Arthur walked through the front door, briefcase in hand. His voice boomed across the room. "This transaction is illegal. I have a court injunction that prohibits any sale of this property until further notice." The buyers backed away instantly, packing up their papers. "We're not touching this," one of them muttered, and they hurried out the door. Daniel's face twisted with rage. "You ruined everything," he shouted. "No, son," I said. "You ruined everything the moment you chose greed over family." But the battle wasn't over. Not yet. Because, as Arthur explained, Daniel had already signed contracts with the loan sharks, and they weren't going to walk away empty-handed. That night, as I sat in my armchair, I heard a knock at the door. 2 men stood on my porch, broad shoulders, leather jackets, eyes like stone. One of them smiled thinly. "Mr. Wallace, your son owes us a lot of money. If he can't pay, maybe you'd like to help him out." Behind them, I saw Daniel's car parked crookedly at the curb. He sat inside, watching, too much of a coward to face me. I straightened my back. "Gentlemen," I said, "if you've got business, take it up with him. This is my house, my life, and I'm not giving another dime to cover his mistakes." The men exchanged a look. Then one of them leaned closer, lowering his voice.
Then you better watch your back, old man, because when he runs out of excuses, they'll come looking for you." That was the breaking point. I realized Daniel hadn't just endangered my house, he had put my life at risk. So I made a vow. If my son wanted to gamble away his soul, fine, but he wasn't dragging me down with him. I called Emily. "It's time," I told her. Within hours, she was at my doorstep, tears in her eyes as she hugged me. "Dad, I can't believe he did this." I looked past her, out at the night sky. "Believe it, and it's not over. Daniel thinks he's outsmarted me, but I've lived too long, fought too hard to let my own son bury me alive." I slipped Linda's wedding ring back onto my finger, my resolve hardening. The war for my home, my freedom, and my dignity had begun.